Hello again, Norse fans. We are here once again with the Horizone Roundtable, I guess, utility player, John Parker. When we can't find a guy, except with the exception of last week, when we can't find a guy to cover a team for us and kind of give us the lowdown on what to expect, we know we can turn to the man, the myth, the legend himself, the Horizone Roundtable Power Rankings man, John Parker. John, tell everyone what's
up. How you guys
up.
Doing? Yeah, so this week you actually had me on for my alma mater, so that makes a little more sense.
Yeah, it does. And you asked how we're doing. I'll tell you, we're doing pretty good because, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but we're doing good because we just won 2 games from a men's basketball perspective, and Mr. Parker here has kept our women's team, understandably so, sidelined in his power rankings for going on. I mean, definitely for the last 4 weeks, possibly for the last 6, because we haven't played a conference game since December 20th.
I think I put that rule in about play half the conference games, and then I put it in more for the men's side because honestly, I figured a lot of folks are really reading the women's side.
Yeah, fine. But here's the deal. We're not going to hate on you for not ranking the women's team when they don't play. But I'm just going to say on behalf of Norse Nation, suck it, because our women's team.
Hey, I'm the one who thought they were going to win.
That's true. You did. But
You're the one who didn't think they were going to win because they've been gone so long.
Okay, that's fair. But look, then we both bet against our own team. And I think it's because we both know it's easier to bet against your team and win, and your team win. Yep. Like you'd rather eat a bad bet than eat a loss. Yep. So I'm always the person who hedges against my team because I'd rather be let down by being wrong that they were going to win than be let down by them losing. So but anyway, that's all the time we wanted to spend on that. I just wanted to rub it in to John a little bit. He tries to act like he's
in the power rankings when you get to halfway.
Well, what's that look like? Do we have to win? Do we have to play 2 more games to get to halfway?
Yeah, next weekend. So if you sweep Green Bay, you're 1. If you don't,
that's all we have to do is beat the historically the best team in conference the last however many years it's been, with the coach that looks like a villain in a Marvel movie.
Oh man. They are currently at 3 league losses, 2 of them to us. Last year was the first time that they lost more than 3 since like the freaking 90s, man. Like before the Horizon League was the Horizon.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, and to be fair, last year was IUPUI's league. Like they took it for last year, possibly for this year, but yeah, Green Bay was a challenge, man. They ran us by 20 when we went up and played them, but then we beat them at home last year, and that was awesome. And then of course they got us in the semifinal. Even though our men's team ended up winning the championship, I have to say us losing to Green Bay in the women's side, for better or for worse, sort of ruined my Horizon League tournament experience. I was so amped on that team. And even though the men did win and that made it a little bit better, still hurt. But John, that's not what we have you here for today. Let's not deviate too much from the point.
Man, sorry.
No, it's good. It's good. We do it all the time together. I want to know from you though, tell me about this Milwaukee Panthers men's basketball team, because I got to say, I haven't watched them this year. I know I put it out there on Twitter. What games should we watch? I do have some games for the fans. We'll talk about that here at the end of the show, pointing them in the right direction. So I will be watching those games this week to kind of catch myself up. But I'm looking at the stats, man, and this looks like the Tejon Lucas show. The guy who leads the team in points, rebounds, and assists, shoots 80% from the field.
Free throw.
I'm sorry, free throw.
I wish he shot 80% from the field.
Yeah, that's a good correction. That's a good correction. We'll talk about the field goal shooting here in a second, but Milwaukee's 6-5 in conference, 7-6 overall. I mean, from a paper perspective, we're 9-8 and 7-5 in conference. So, I mean, from a paper perspective, this is as about as even of a matchup as you can get going into this weekend. Matchup predictor on ESPN has us at a 1-3 chance of winning. What are your thoughts, John? I want to know what you can tell me about this team.
So, like NKU, but for different reasons, I have no idea what's going to happen. For us, it's kind of what most of the other schools in the middle, like for you guys, in my opinion, it's the youth that is kind of, having so many young players, so many players new to D1 that are so important to your team. That's got you a lot of highs, a lot of lows. For us, we're kind of more like Oakland, where we have guys who, Tejon Lucas is a perfect one. He might go, if some Michael J. Fox looking guy came up to me and said, yeah, next weekend, Tejon Lucas is going to go for, 5 points in both games. Like, I'd take his word for it. If he said 30, I'd take his word for it. You kind of alluded to it. His shooting percentages this year have been way down from where they were last year. I think trying to kind of be the guy on offense, which is interesting to me because he does have a second option. I'd argue in terms of shooting and scoring. Last year he had Darius Roy, who was kind of the streaky shooter. This year he has DeAndre Golston, who's been a much more consistent player as far as scoring the ball and a few other elements. Roy was undersized, so he was more of like a combo 1-2, whereas Golston is 6'5", so he's more of a combo 2-3 and gets a lot more rebounds, a lot less assists. But this year it has been Lucas who's been kind of the streaky shooter, and DeAndre Golston's actually shooting really well. The other thing on offense that we'll have going potentially, it's another wild card situation. But for completely different reasons. So Tafari Sims has been injured the last 2 weeks. He came absolutely out of nowhere after not playing for the non-conference in the first couple games. He was playing 8 to 10 minutes a game. Then against our IUPUI the first time around 3 weeks ago, just went off for 32 points on, really efficient shooting. Had a couple so-so games, mostly due to foul trouble, and then put in another 20-some point performance. So out of nowhere, this guy who was barely playing for the first part of the season turned into our third leading scorer.
Is he John, is he a transfer, or has he always been
junior college? Yeah, JUCO.
Okay.
Okay. And then he's been injured the last 2 weeks, so no idea if he'll play, no idea how he'll play if he does play. That's kind of been the theme with so many guys this year, between COVID protocols and injuries and, restricted practices. I don't know. This has been a weird season, and he's definitely a guy who has the potential to either, score 5 points and foul out in 10 minutes or score 25 points. So offensively, we're kind of all over the place, just depending on how the shooting goes and how, for him, it's more about foul trouble. He's shooting lights out from both 2 and 3 this year. Defensively, I don't know. It feels like if you're a team that is struggling to shoot, you want to play Milwaukee, but then you look at the stats, and in particular the stats in Horizon League, we're middle of the pack for 3-point defense, and we let a team shoot 71% from 3, so that's pretty shocking to me.
Yeah.
We let Cleveland State jump out to that 23-2 lead just because we didn't defend them beyond the arc. I mean,
right. Fought back in that game though.
They did.
I don't think anyone expected. I mean, I even was tweeting that like I'm going to bed.
I didn't
And then all
quite
this,
expect them to battle all the way back.
yeah.
But they kind of had a history last year of just not showing up for about 10 real minutes, the first 4 or 5 minutes of the game. Just not, all of a sudden you're down by double digits already. Like, what the hell happened?
I will say, on your point about Golston, when you mentioned him, I doubled back on the stats. And I mean, so you say that Tijon Lucas is leading the team in points, rebounds, and assists, but he's really only leading the team by 0.2 points per game. It's 15.2 to 15 between him and Golston. He's only leading the team in 0.2 rebounds per game. It's 5.3 to 5.1 between him and Golston. The assists obviously is where it really separates itself. But it's interesting. Like I kind of made the comparison between Minette and Burke as sort of like the McCollum and Lillard of the Horizon League. But I'm going to stand by that, but it almost does feel like Tijon Lucas and Golston have sort of like that point guard relationship. But it's weird because it almost feels like when Tijon Lucas should be maybe deferring a little bit more just from an efficiency perspective. Just again, this is just based on stats. I haven't watched these games yet, but it almost makes me wonder, is he sort of playing himself out of the game, kind of like a Russell Westbrook type might, where his efficiency numbers are so bad, it's making him not as effective of a scorer. I mean, to your point.
Yeah, I would.
Lucas
I would have thought
Lucas is shooting 42% from 2-point field goal range to Golston's 54% from twos. And I mean, 3-pointers, it's 23.6 to 35%.
Yeah.
Like
Golston's doing it as efficient as you want on both levels. Lucas is not doing it as efficient as you want on either level. And last year, it was kind of the opposite for the Panthers, point guard, shooting guard, where it was, I mean, I think Roy still shot threes pretty well, but overall his shooting wasn't great, whereas Lucas was very efficient. If he could somehow, dig and get back to that efficiency he had last year, I really like where Milwaukee's going in these next few weeks. If he can't, it's going to be a crapshoot. Like, I mean, he might go for 30, he might go for 5. I don't know.
Yeah. What about your team inside this year? How did they shape up on the interior part of the game? I mean, I know last year that you guys had like CJ Wilborn. He wasn't like a glass eater per se, but he started most of the games. He was definitely a big body. What do you guys look like top to bottom inside?
We are kind of doing essentially a 4-out, 1-in a lot of the time with either Sims or Grant Coleman, a freshman from Illinois, as kind of the second forward, but more perimeter oriented on offense. Early on in the year, it was Amir Allen getting the starts, which I found really interesting. I know the first game, it sounded like Wilborn was either hurt or was just coming out of COVID-19 protocols. But then Allen kept on starting. Since then, they've kind of switched that back. But Wilborn hasn't made the leap that I kind of expected. Last year, he seemed scared to shoot. But when he did shoot, the ball had better than a coin flip shot of going in. So, before the year, I wrote an article saying, like, I could see him being a guy who could be, 10-7 type player. If he would just, shoot more, maybe be okay with being a 52% shooter instead of, 60%. He's been shooting more, but he's not making the leap I expected, I guess. His minutes didn't really jump, I think, partially because we got 2 more guys who are playing as forwards, even though they're on offense at least more perimeter oriented.
Yeah, we struggle with that a lot. Like
Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, I think that's a kind of a Horizon League recruiting tactic. If you can't recruit a true big man, then you recruit big wings that can play, they're more of like guards wings on offense, but on defense, you have to have them play sort of like the back line, big guy, whatever. So yeah, interesting. I do find it very interesting that you mentioned Wilborn. If he kind of stepped his game up, he could be, what did you say exactly? He's 10 and 7.
Like 10-7 that guy.
He's averaging in conference play. I'm not even concerned so much about the points. He's at 5.8, shooting almost 60% from 2-point range. So like when he's in the paint or inside the arc, at least, he's almost up to 60%. But what I'm seeing is 3.1 rebounds per game in conference play.
Yeah.
Not the leap you'd like to see. Now, to be fair, he's also he's seeing about the same across the board in minutes played per game this year. So
one thing where, I figured with him being kind of the last year he was, as a freshman, the top guy of 3 post players, essentially. One of them graduated. I figured he'd get the lion's share of those minutes and make a jump.
Was he on the freshman team last year?
Yeah, snuck on.
Yeah, he sure was, wasn't he?
Yep.
Trying to remember. I know Holden was on that team.
Yeah, so Amari Davis, Tanner Holden, Basili Wilborn, and then Blake Lampman from Oakland.
Man, yeah, so that's not what you want to see out of a top 5 freshman in conference. I'm just trying to make heads and tails of this team. And I mean, to be fair, like probably the biggest reason I can't make heads or tails of them right now is because I haven't watched them yet. But I did watch, like I said, I watched a little bit of that Cleveland State game. I actually did tune back in when they started their comeback and like either tied or took the lead.
Were winning.
Yeah.
They were winning in the second half. It was wild.
Yeah. So, I mean, kind of the basis of the season, the theme of the season, we talk about it a lot on Horizone Roundtable, is who are you? Who is this team? Like, what am I looking at here?
So mediocre. I mean, that's basically everyone with, varying levels of coaching outside of, I'd say Wright State's not mediocre. They just occasionally have let down games.
Fair enough. Well, it's also hard to say like if a team's for real or not in this league, like because the barometers are so like a lot of people had Youngstown State top 4 and they're last in conference right now.
Yep.
For circumstances, of course, like Quisenberry not being around or whatever's going on. But yeah, well, okay. So look, who is this team? You say mediocre. Everyone's mediocre. Obviously, NKU's got their youth excuse, and I'm not going to let anyone overlook that. What is if Milwaukee's mediocre this year? Like, what is their prospectus? Like, what looking forward? Is it just like all hand? Like, we're just do 10 Hail Marys a day and hope that we get Pat Baldwin Jr. Or is it?
I mean, regardless, yes, that's absolutely.
Okay.
But I almost feel like we have some bigs who can shoot the ball and a bunch of guards who, outside of one, really aren't shooting the ball all that well this year. And we're shooting threes just constantly. So I almost wonder, I mean, do you just maybe go grab a former Bo Ryan assistant and see if we can try the swing next year, grab a couple more shooters if we don't get Baldwin Jr.?
Okay, he's not going to Milwaukee, dude, right? Like,
my guess would be Duke. If he goes somewhere other than Duke, I think it's Milwaukee. Yeah, he's a 6'9", for our purposes. Dude, for our purposes, he could play 1 through 5.
Yeah, if he goes to Milwaukee, it's curtains for everyone. This is not this is not Antoine Davis. No disrespect to Antoine Davis.
Well, and I'll take it one step further. It's not Ray McCallum Jr. back when he was at Detroit with his dad. And no disrespect to him. Obviously, he wound up winning Player of the Year and going to the NBA after 3 years. I mean, the only way that he wouldn't come in and just dominate would be that the injury that's got him sidelined affects him long term. And from what I understand, it's not as bad as they initially thought. So it probably wouldn't. But I mean, yeah, he's the number 4 recruit in the nation.
Right.
I don't really. I guess people have kind of compared him to like Jason Tatum in terms of play style. But
that's like an actual, like, I compare Trayvon Faulkner components of his game to James Harden, but that's an actual comparison though. No. When I say this, I always preface it with scaled down, right?
And I think
with Pat Baldwin Jr.,
it's a little bit, but not that much.
Right. No, that's like an actual NBA comp. Like, these are scouts saying, yeah, his NBA comp is Jason Tatum. Anyway, let's not go down too far down the rabbit hole because that's a whole like next year type of thing. Look, it sounds like this is to me, the big thing to look out for in this matchup is going to be how well do you guys shoot the 3 and how well do we defend the 3? When we defend the 3 well, we're pretty successful. It's the main point of our matchup zone is that we need aggressive guards, getting in 3-point shooters, and rotating quickly when the ball gets inside. And it sounds like you guys shoot a lot of them. So, and we're not going to change our philosophy. We're not the kind of team like Cleveland State. They might run a zone, they might run a man, depends on their matchup. The matchup zone is ingrained in our DNA. So we're running it. And so you guys will have opportunities to shoot 3s. It sounds to me like it's going to come down to
healthy.
Sorry.
Hopefully Tafari Sims is healthy.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, for you guys anyway. John, I'm not going to get you on the record for predictions, but it has been again a pleasure talking with you. Hopefully, for your sake, hopefully I can get one of the Green Bay guys for next week and Nick Lorenzen to come on for the Wright State week, so I don't have to bug you again. But I know that our fans love hearing from you when they get the chance. So I appreciate you doing it, man.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, John.